Hey guys, today we're going to be reviewing period three, which is basically a huge amount of information. And I actually personally think that the DBQ will come from this time period. So it's just a guess. I mean, I have no evidence, just the amount of different documents you can grab from this era. Some of the AP people think that on this Facebook page think that it's going to be cross period questions, really change and continuity. And continuity changes. What hasn't changed and what has changed is basically that type of question. Um, so let's look at this. This is period three. It begins in 1815, which is the Congress of Vienna. And this is when we get the age of Metternich right here, the age of Metternich, 1815 to 1848. This is um, highly conservative, the Congress of Vienna. They basically want to undo everything that Napoleon did and put strong monarchs back on the throne. And they create something called the Concert of Europe. It's like a very, I don't want to say early League of Nations or UN, but this is kind of this chance where strong countries would join together and try to prevent any type of French Revolution again across Europe. And so they joined in this concert of Europe, and they have some successes early on. They stop revolt in Spain and Italy. Those are some early successes of this concert of Europe. You also have the infamous Decembrist Revolt in Russia in 1825. This will be really crushed. This is when they did the Emperor Alexander dies, and then Constantine gets it, and they go out there and say Constantine or Constitution, and then the brother Nicholas I comes in and says, "No, I'm the Tsar," and then just it's crushed. Basically, this. And then Polish nationalism, Poland always wants their own country, and that's going to be crushed too. But the two main early successes of the Concert of Europe are Spain and Italy. Failures. If you remember, Belgium becomes an independent nation. At this time, it was part of the Netherlands, and they were just like, we're so different. We don't have any power in this. They revolt against their own country of Belgium. Latin America uses this time period to really overthrow Spanish rule. And France in 1830 is going to get a liberal monarchy, basically, at least in the beginning. And you have this weird Greek independence movie that's supported by a monarchist. In 1830, the very right wing, the ultras, if you remember that, in France, are overthrown. And you get the July monarchy, 3 days in July. And it's Louis Philippe. He's known as the Citizen King, bourgeois monarchy. Remember, he doesn't dress as a king. He dresses as the upper bourgeoisie, and he's going to bring in many reforms. Your classical liberal freedom, less censorship, less torture, more press freedoms, all that stuff. And then he's going to slowly renege on this and really crush it. Okay. Um, so they get tired of that and they do the revolutions of 1848, which occur all across Europe. And if you remember the quote, it was a turning point in history that failed to turn. In France, you're going to get a republic. It's going to overthrow Louis Philippe. Remember, it's the February Revolution in Paris, and they bring in this very socialist kind of government that tries these workshops in 1848, and then that's going to be overthrown violently, and then they have a presidential election where he's Louis Napoleon then is overthrown, and then he's going to do a coup on the republic and create the Second Empire. We'll talk about that in a second. um, Austria is going to have initial success. Remember, they're going to need help from the Russians to crush the Hungarian revolt. In Berlin, there's initial success. They even try to create this German federalist kind of government out of Frankfurt. That's going to fail because they don't have the support of the Prussians and the Austrians. Remember the crown from the gutter. The Prussian ruler, excuse me, would not accept it. But some lasting successes of all of them are initial successes, but then are crushed. But some lasting successes are Austria outlaws the Robata, and France gets universal male suffrage. So these are some big ones. And then we ask in 1848, why didn't revolutions occur in Great Britain? Well, because the British believe we were formed from above, not from below. So they pass a lot of laws that take pressure off the impetus of revolution. They increase male suffrage. Remember, time you've ever seen a Reform Act? It's all it has to do with male suffrage. They do labor laws. They repeal the corn laws, all right, which were these high tariffs on wheat. And you get the infamous Chartist movement, and they want a bunch of reforms. There's a whole laundry list of them that over time they end up getting, except for really one, which is elections, yearly elections. So a lot of reforms, a lot of laws being passed. So they felt that people feel that you can reform within the system rather than overthrowing the system. And that's why Great Britain, of course, is different. Now, really, what is changing a lot of this is, of course, the Industrial Revolution. Uh, I mean, think about the impact on this, of course. And let's talk about something really quick that they'd like to ask that they could is the effect of the Industrial Revolution on Europe. And you would say huge effects, right? Impacts. Look at these impacts. People move to the cities, issues with childcare because you usually can work in the home, pollution, living conditions. We know about the slums, the rise of this is the impacts, creation of a middle class, a working class, and really pay attention to this. But how did it not affect Europe? Well, it didn't affect Eastern Europe. Don't think, remember that as these questions go on, as we're asked, divide it up. Remember, Eastern Europe is way, 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 way behind Western Europe. And so the Industrial Revolution does not impact all of Europe. It impacts Western Europe, not Eastern Europe, until later. And that's something to think about and really pay attention to these impacts right here. I could read them all out, but let's look at these. The response, remember who the Luddites are. They don't like the new machinery and technology. A lot of people feel like their jobs are being replaced, especially agricultural workers, by these. And then it slowly impacted Eastern Europe that I just mentioned. Remember, the first industrial revolution occurred in Great Britain because it was textiles. The second industrial revolution is steel and coal. And these are the reasons right here: enclosure movement, agricultural methods, advance, and so forth. So, really look over this. Um, so, let's go up here to the age of realpolitik. So look at where we are now, 1848 to 1871, really signified by nationalism. You get the unification of Germany under Bismarck. You get the unification of Italy under Garibaldi, and of course Cavour. Really, I don't know how much they could ask of this because you could Google it pretty easy, and y'all know this pretty well. But look back up how they do that, of course. Remember, unification of Germany. Bismarck is just brilliant at getting them to declare war on him, and he's able to isolate his enemies, and he gets all the support. While in Italy, they remember that because of 1848, they realize that they have to have outside help to unify Italy. All right, the Second Empire. Remember, he tries to be all things to all people, to the upper classes. He does economics. He rebuilds Paris, government subsidies for the working classes. He then tries to, hey, we're going to bring in more Republican principles, less censorship, and you can criticize the government without punishment. And then he wants to be the leader of Europe, and he helps all these people out. He tries to, support the Polish. He tries to help the Italians, and it ends up in the end isolating him in the ultimate war against the Prussians in the Franco-Prussian War. He has some successes, but many failures, what will lead to him being captured in wartime. So, not a good thing. In 1866, you get Ausgleich, which is finally Hungary gets more independence within the empire. The only thing that really attaches Hungary to Austria is the Austrian king right here. Ideas of self determination come up. And Hungary jumps on this because in 1866, the Austrians get whooped by the Prussians in the Austro-Prussian War. So this is why it takes place in that year right there. So kind of this is what's going on there in the age of realpolitik. And then we get into the age of mass politics. Okay, this is where you get some working class activism. This is when you get the ideas of socialism actually form into political parties. So you're going to get after the Paris Commune, which was a big revolt in Paris by the working class, you get the Third Republic. And for them, imperialism, they can't have show strength in Europe, so they go abroad. They go overseas to increase the amount of colonies they have because that's going to show their strength. And it does with Great Britain, too, of course. You get a rise of anti Semitism. The example is the Dreyfus Affair. And you get an increase in education away from the Catholic Church. So this is the Third Republic. It goes pretty far, I think, until the 1940s, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the longest lasting republic. It'll probably be usurped by the current one soon. The German Empire, as you know, under Bismarck, they become the first European welfare state. And why does Bismarck do this? To take power away from the socialists, for people to depend more on the Kaiser than on a political party. And so he just zaps all their power. He actually outlaws them at one point, and this is going to get him canned by the Kaiser. He also tries Kulturkampf. This is also to take away the power of the Catholic Church in southern Germany and get them focus more heavily on being loyal to the Kaiser and not to the Catholic Church, because France is also Catholic and they don't want them to lean that way for support. So, but this is a huge failure. You don't mess with people's religion. They really don't like that. During this time of age of mass politics, you get the rise of socialist parties. You get the GDP, SPD. Sorry, I need to change that. SPD. You get the Labor or Liberal Party. They push through what is known as the People's Budget. We want to underline that or highlight it. Through the People's Budget. And also during this time, if you remember, of Gladstone and Disraeli, you get a lot of an increase in suffrage, male suffrage, of course, through many reform acts. Remember, anytime you see a reform act, it is an increase in suffrage. And then, of course, during this time period, you have imperialism. You can always use the Congo as an example in Africa. Oh, it's a great example. You can talk about the Boer Wars. These are some things we talked about as examples. So really think about some of this stuff. And of course, imperialism is the three C's. Commerce, all right, to increase commerce. This is for to provide the resources and the outlet for products. And remember, this was done because everywhere in Europe was throwing up tariffs, so they really couldn't trade with each other, so they go abroad for trade. Civilization, this is when, hey, you're going to bring civilization to these people. It has heavy undertones of social Darwinism, that, hey, our civilization is better than yours, so you need to adopt ours. And then you have Christianity. Hey, let's bring Christianity, and that was under the auspices of ending the Arab slave trade. So those are some aspects of imperialism. But there is a fourth C, which is conquest, and that's from the native point of view. Causes. We really have talked about all these in a prior video. One of the first early ones I did with y'all, so make sure you look at that. All right, I'm going to be attaching period 1, period 2, and period 3 worksheets like this soon. Probably maybe not today, but I want you to really listen to this video to kind of get your mind going, saying, oh yeah, I remember that. All right, guys, good luck. We're going to be practicing DBQ soon, but tomorrow we're going to look at all the major treaties during European history. Over and out.